Welcome back. We talked about an exit strategy in the previous module. Now we want to go into actually contracting for a property. And the first thing we really need to get into is what is it all about? What in terms of making the right offer? What's the details here? How do we make these decisions? What goes into it? And that's what we're going to go into now. So it's very simple. Again, this isn't rocket science. These three circles need to align together. We talked about the property manager says this 1,400 square foot 3-bedroom is the right thing for this particular location, or this 1,800 square foot 4-bedroom is the right thing in this particular location. So we get the right size. And again, remember we talked about it's got to be in the right place. In other words, it's got to be in great school systems. It's got to be in the right location within the neighborhood. And so we get the right place. And now we want the right price. That's a critical function. And it's going to be different, depending on whether it's a new construction or existing construction. And we're going to go into that in terms of what the differences are and how we make those decisions. So one thing that we need to know for sure, that whatever we're buying is rent ready. In other words, that once you close on it, that if you close on it at 10 o'clock in the morning and one of those wonderful things happen and somebody moves in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, nothing has to be done to the property. And so, especially in new construction, we need to make sure it's fence, blinds, and garage door opener. Not all builders put this in. They make it an extra. Sometimes they want to make a little extra money on it. Sometimes they offer it as incentive to buy or whatever, but you got to have a fence in the back for your dogs or for your kids to play. You need blinds for privacy, and you need a garage door if it's got a garage to go in and out of. So those are essentials. Now, everything else has to be there also. Your appliances, flooring, everything that you need in terms of renting that property out has got to be there. But we want to make sure those extras are there. Now, on an existing home, it's different. We need to look at what's in the existing home, because they may have those ancient leveler blinds that are, just this thin. We may need to replace the blinds. Certain things may not be up to snuff, and so we need to replace them, redo them. Cabinets may be stained, and that's not what the market calls for, and you need to paint them white or whatever it happens to be for that market. So we want updating. We especially want updating and capital improvements. Your roof is very expensive. Your central heat and air, your hot water tank. There are certain things that are very, very expensive to replace. And so if you have a 20 or 25-year-old central heat and air system that's still working, you need to factor that in when you're buying the existing property and thinking about what it's going to be to rent ready, or what monies I might need to put out in the next 5 years. So updating is very, very important. You want something to look current. You want something to look fresh. And so everything in that house needs to look really, really good. If it needs to be repainted, all right, you got to do these things, and you got to factor that in and make sure you have the money to do it. I think landscaping is extremely important. A renter is not that much different than an owner-occupant in the fact that I want to drive up to my house and I want it to look beautiful. That first impression, I know it's a cliche in real estate, but it's huge. If it looks deserted, if it looks like there's nothing there, if the lawn is in bad shape, I'm sorry. People are going to go, let's go on to the next house. Need to make that. Now, there's certain things that, we'll talk to you about once we examine the home, like flat paint. Flat paint looks really good, but it's the worst thing in the world if you have to spot it. If damage comes to it, you spot it, it looks terrible. All right, so you may need to say, well, if it's a builder, can I upgrade to a satin, a semi-gloss, something of that nature that's washable or that I can spot and it looks normal? Or do I have to repaint the house completely if it's existing? That's just one thing, but a good specialist is really going to go through this with you. Your property manager is going to go through this with you. Make sure you understand how to make this thing rent ready, how to make it appealing. That's extremely important to you. Repairs are very important before you close. Now, I know maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves in terms of making the right offer, but it depends on the state. Now, I know in my own state, it's an automatic contingencies. There's no dollar figures in there. But what happens after inspections, you have the right to say, I want this, and this fixed. Now, normally, the way we work, it's fundamental. In other words, central heat and air, AC, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, basically, foundation. there's certain things that are extremely important that the inspector deals with. They really don't deal with cosmetics. So even on new homes, we do inspections. And the reason why is they're built by human beings. I've had a new home built for me, and I can tell you there were repairs done in a bedroom because the sheetrockers went over the electric and the electric didn't work in that bedroom. It was easily fixed, but that's the reason you do it. Mistakes are made. On an existing home, it's even more important. And again, pay attention to those capital items, those expensive items. They typically, in inspections, they either work or they don't work. But again, if something's 25 years old, dial it in. You're probably going to do repairs or replacement at some point. And so that's a factor that you go into in terms of making the right offer, what the condition of that property is in. So, if licensed contractors are required, all right, that's electrical, that's central heat and air, that's plumbing, make sure that your seller, that you're buying from and that realtor say, this is the only way I'm going to accept this house, is if it requires a licensed person, it's going to have a licensed person doing the repairs. That's huge because, something, I don't want some handyman off the street saying, oh, I can do that and I can do it cheaper. That's not necessarily good because electrical that goes bad, that's done improperly, can cause a fire. You want to make sure you have it done by a professional and that you get a warranty. It's going to be short term, but these kind of quality contractors that are licensed will give you a warranty. And again, I'm going ahead of myself here a little bit, but make sure repairs are done previous to closing. If you're buying something out of state and you can't go, your realtor should go, your inspector should go and re-inspect. And before you close, the property manager should do a drive-by, a run-by inside the house to make sure that that house is clean if it's an existing property, because people move out, right, at a certain time. You want to make sure that everything is right before you close. And make sure you get invoices on anything that's licensed to do or anything that's done by anybody. If it's a fence, whatever it happens to be, if it's a roof that doesn't necessarily require a license, although normally they do, get the invoices so that you have someone you can go back on that in the first 15 days or 30 days, something goes wrong. So repairs are very important in the contract. They're normally a contingency. Some states may have you put a dollar figure in there. I don't like that. I like it when it's a negotiable item and it allows you to walk away. We're going to get into contingencies in just a little bit. In fact, that's our next section. We're going to go into contingencies that are in the contract or should be in the contract. And we're even going to explore a few extras that in certain situations you might want to put in. So stay tuned. More stuff's coming. We're going to go into more of a contract to close and talk about contingencies in the contract.